Yeah.
And aside from being able to have dialogue with other educators, teachers who may not feel that they are receiving adequate support in their school environments can use the conscious pedagogue as a way to gain access to culturally responsive worksheets. Now, for me, when I first began teaching, I never, and in my first 2 years, had real tangible examples of what a culturally responsive worksheet or a lesson even looks like. And not to say that higher education has done a disservice, but a lot of our professors in higher education have just been out of the classroom for a really long time, and they just don't know. And
Right.
so you cannot get upset with someone because they just don't know. They've aged out, because they decided to take on another endeavor, and that's fine. Um, so that's not good for us as incoming teachers, because we're always told to embrace socially conscious pedagogy and practices and all these cute little terms, but no one has ever given somebody a sheet that says, here's an example lesson. This is what it looks like from beginning to end, from do now to activity to PowerPoint to exit ticket. And so for me on this website, I'm actually giving away my materials for free. um
Mm.
my philosophy for myself is, I need to always challenge myself, and so I never use the same material twice. It's very, very rare. And so instead of having these digital materials, which based on data have proven to be effective, and also even through my evaluations I've never scored an ineffective rating according to the Danielson framework. So if my administrators, who were not easy. I love my administrators, but they were not easy on me. So if I can get high ratings, effective to highly effective ratings, to getting 89% pass rates, to developing and co-developing curriculums that score these high percentages, obviously I must be doing something right. So why don't I just give that away? Why not? Why not? Instead of it just gathering digital cobwebs in my Google Drive. So that's my way of giving back to a community of teachers who may feel like they don't have any adequate examples in front of them.
I love it. I love it. And I think to answer your question on why there's no worksheets is because, generally you have two type of people. You have people that, they accept it and you generally create it like you and I,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we know that to probably make a culturally responsive lesson plan compared to a non-culturally responsive lesson plan, it's probably going to take twice as longer to make that culturally responsive lesson plan because you're literally being creative because there's no reference, right?
Exactly.
You understand me? And I think that first person, right? They do it, right? And then you have the other person. They're like, I don't have this. I'm not going to do this because there's no tangible item, like you said. The theories, yeah, it makes sense. Okay, but what does this look like?
Right.
And then if they're unfortunately of a different culture, sometimes they're like, I'm gonna listen, and then I'm gonna do what I was doing before I did this PD.
Right, exactly. And that's just not fair. And that's why you have teacher burnout, because we keep saying phrases at folks. We keep telling them, make sure you incorporate this and incorporate that. But then
Yeah.
it's like, as my students would say, how, Sway? How? What? Gay? Como? How? So, so the thing is, you keep, I know the theory, but how do I apply it? And so that's application. And actually, I have a hashtag on my site that says application trumps theory, because it does. It's just like theory is just words. That's abstract thought. But now you need to teach me, how am I creating this big, wonderful, great, grand theory? Because something that I may view as culturally responsive may not really be culturally responsive, and may just be repeating the same old thing that has been ineffective for many, many years.
So let's give you flowers, right? So you're in New York, and New York is a very state. What's the name of the word for it? High state.
High stakes, very high stakes.
Yeah, yeah, high stakes testing, right? And that's the region exam. And if you don't pass that, then you don't matriculate and go to the next, pretty much college, right? You don't
Right,
graduate.
right.
And it is for middle school too, right?
So
Or
you
just high
could,
school?
so it's mainly for high school, but generally, if a student in middle school is considered to be an honor student, they are actually eligible to take a few Regents exams while in middle school. And then when they're in high school, they can take more AP exams. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, cool. But to finish giving your flowers, like you said, like I've been doing this for 6 years, and to give some of the numbers, so Aurora's practices allowed her to be a champion, 89% passing rate on the NYS US History Region. She co-authored global history curriculum that achieved 93% passing rates on the that's the global 2 region.
The global 2 regions.
Global 2 region.
I
Yeah,
have to
so
give
good.
my flowers. Actually, I'll be honest with you. I have to give flowers to my homegirl. Uh, I don't know if she wants me to say her name, but I'm gonna call her T. I have to give her credit because she definitely did her thing on that
Yes.
exam. Did her thing. So give her a bouquet because that test the state did not give her any materials to base any of her instructional content on, and she created original material that allowed her students to thrive. So she's amazing for that.
I love it. I don't know if you listen to Drake, but he said in the song, he said, if me and Future didn't make it in this rapping, we'd probably be out in Silicon trying to get our billions on. But here we are.
There you
Yeah.
go. There you go.
And he's pretty much he's saying like, even if I wasn't rapping, anything, I'm going to create and change. And I think teachers do that every single day, but we don't get paid for it. We don't get the compensation for it.
We don't. And especially in New York, because New York is extremely expensive.
Right.
Average rent here for a 1 bedroom starts at about 15. And depending on which neighborhood you live in, you could look at a $3,000 apartment just so you can have a certain zip code. And it's unfortunate that I've witnessed, and this actually also inspired some components of the Conscious Pedagogue as well. I really hated, and I have to use that word, I hated the fact that myself and many of my friends always had to have more than one job. When you think about being an educator, we accrue and gain a lot of student debt to go through these programs, to go get our bachelor's, our master's, our PhD. And there are some teachers that have over $100,000 debt, and then they go into this field which is so demanding, but it's very rewarding, and then you're only getting maybe half of what your student debt is. But then you have to pay off these ridiculous student loans. You can't barely afford to keep a house over your head. You have to have a roommate situation when that's not something you want. And for me, with the Conscious Pedagogue, I said to myself, maybe there's a way for where a teacher can, there's certain things that I cannot do. And I cannot pay somebody a livable wage. I'm not there. But with the Conscious Pedagogue, I am going to offer teachers the opportunity to maybe host classes through the site. So every teacher has a talent. Whether it be just creating a focus question, whether it be identifying which common core skills apply to a lesson, because some folks don't know how to do that very well.
Yeah.
And if you can maybe host a 1 hour class that maybe brings in $50 for you per person, and you can get a full house of people on their Zoom call, something you do Monday through Friday, and you don't have to do too much extra work, and that puts a little bit more money in your pocket without you having to do too much else, then let my site be that place for you.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
all, as well as worksheets too, because again, especially for those of us that have been in the field for a while, we have so many worksheets, so many lesson plans, so many PowerPoints that are wonderful, that instead of it again gathering that digital dust it off and put it out there to sell. There's someone out there that needs it. So if my site can be that refuge for you so you can make an additional income for yourself, then hopefully my website can serve that purpose for you. Other sites they're just looking for volume. They're just looking for teachers to post, makes their website look good. It helps generate revenue from the amount of viewers that come on the site. And then as a person who's the customer, you see thousands and thousands of people selling these products, but you have no idea if it's an effective lesson. You have no idea if it's an effective product. So then you spend your $2 to $20, and in some cases you could buy a whole curriculum for $200 or $300 on this website, and then you buy it, and then you're disappointed because then you find out that it's not that great, and as a result, you're out of your money. And now you're stuck with something that you're going to have to modify. And that defeats the whole purpose sometimes of using these sites in the first place, unfortunately. So for me,
the money.
Exactly. So for me, this site, anything that comes on here, I must check it out myself. And, if the website becomes popular, I definitely would hire people who need to show me that they have highly effective ratings, things of that sort, in order to help me with the vetting process, because I am a full-time teacher as well. So I'm not retired. This isn't my full-time gig. I am a full-time teacher to beautiful 11th graders. So
Wow.
yeah.
I'm so proud of you. You are doing a thing. And I'm curious to know, like, where did you get this, passion for teaching? Does your Afrocentricity contribute to any of this work? Not saying that it has to, because we kind of talked about it. Like, culture responsive teaching is more than just race. It's just great teaching. It's deeper level thinking to get kids to connect our content with their reality so they can, pass these standards. Um, Man, like, I really love what you're saying, like, about we have to work harder just to make these, and it's not like a resource, because you talked about people don't even know how to break down like a standard from the skills to like the knowledge, right?
Right.
But you have to do that in order to teach effectively, right? To teach culture responsibly, right? Because you want kids to go through that and to get the data.
Exactly.
Because you got to get the data. Because if you're not getting the data, your coach is going to be like, okay, you can't do this stuff that you're creating. I'm going to give you a curriculum, right? I'm going to give you something that's already, it's robust. It's probably not going to have cultural responsiveness in it.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, I'm sure you got it from your experience as a teacher, So, like, well, talk about, like, it come up a little bit.
So I So I'm from the Bronx, but the area in the Bronx I live in, a lot of folks will say, that ain't the Bronx. That ain't the Bronx. That's this. I grew up in a neighborhood that is very blended, but it does have a majority of folks that are within the Jewish faith, and also folks that identify as Irish. Um, Throughout my schooling, I at first was educated through the public school system, but once I got to high school, my family decided to put me into private school.
Okay.
However, when I was in public school up until high school, I never had a culturally responsive teacher. Never.
Lesson.
So for myself, my family is very, very socially conscious, or very conscious folks. I went to poetry events where Nikki Giovanni was the headliner as a kid. My parents took me to the Schomburg to see the Nicholas brothers before they passed on, to talk about their experiences in the movie Stormy Weather. So my entire life, outside of school, I was always immersed in Blackness. I always had to read 2 books a month on a different Black hero, female, male, and what have you. And so as a result, I just grew up just being super knowledgeable about Black history, having an appreciation for the African diaspora. And so for me, going into classrooms where the only time you hear about being Black is in slavery, and then you hear about Harriet Tubman, and then you speed to Malcolm X, and then that's it. And in my head, I'm like, wait, we're not going to talk about Nzinga? We're not going to talk about Mansa Musa? We're not going to talk about Lena Horne? I'm confused. Why are you skipping all of these people? And so when I eventually became a teacher, initially I was afraid to do those things because you just never know. You always have to get a sense for the school that you're in, the administration that is in charge of your school. You need to get a sense of who people are,
Right.
because you always have to. I'll be honest with you. You always have to take a temperature of the room, and so I would say around my third year, I was very fortunate to have an instructional coach who definitely developed me into who I am today. And I attribute the educator that I am today to my instructional coach, who I am still very, very much closely connected to.
Okay. What's their name? You gotta shut them out. You gotta shout them out. Shout them out.
I'm gonna I feel like I should text the person and say, "Hey, is it okay?" I'm just we're gonna call my instructional coach TB.
Boom.
TB.
There we go.
And if you follow me on Instagram, I will connect you to TB. She is amazing, phenomenal. Again, myself, my friend who I mentioned earlier, she made us who we are. She is phenomenal educator, phenomenal. But once I had her as an instructional coach, she asked me, what type of teacher am I? That was the first question she asked when we had our initial interview, when we had our initial meet. And I had to think about that, because originally, I'm not gonna lie, my first 2 years, the teachers I met, they were jaded. Eventually they left my first year, but they always told me, "Oh, go on this website, download this, download that. Don't reinvent the wheel. Don't reinvent the wheel. Just do this, just do that." And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I developed those really bad habits, and I said, "Oh, wow, this is boring." Because I get bored really easily, and I'm like, "Wow, this is all teachers do all day. This is what my teachers did to me. They just downloaded stuff from the internet and just gave it to me." And so when I had my coach, she told me, "Yeah, you're not doing this anymore." And then I remember one time I was teaching, and she said, "Turn off the smart board." She said, "You're a teacher, right?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Here's a dry erase marker. Go teach your kids using the dry erase marker only. I mean, using the dry erase board only." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I'll be honest, that made me learn. I said, "Okay, I need to know my content. I need to know my content, because there's no way the old school method with the chalkboards, dry erase board, there's no PowerPoint, you don't have any notes. If you can teach a straight lesson on a chalkboard or a dry erase board without PowerPoints, you know how to teach, let me tell you." And that's how I became a really good educator. Then she said, "Okay, good, you can teach." Now she said, we need to increase, we need to raise it up, push it up a notch. And then she started giving me tidbits, and then I started incorporating those things. And then I was inspired one summer by a book called Lies Across America by James Lowen. And this book talks about, because I'm a history teacher, this book talks about all of these different catastrophic events in American history, and how there isn't a plaque for these things, and how in America we kind of commemorate events, or we embellish events to make them seem great when they were. And long story short, I said, "I'm gonna have my kids read this." And I did. Like, we looked at that book, we looked at some Howard Zinn, we looked at all these other books. And then that's when the kids really started to learn. I mean, they were asking me questions. They came to class every day and they said, "Hey, miss, what are we learning today?" Or I had kids who maybe I had 2 periods later come to me and say, "Miss, I heard from your last class that you guys are learning about
Yeah.
why Puerto Rico isn't a state. Is that true?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh yeah." They're like, "Oh, I can't wait for this class. I got a lot to say." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Okay. So then once I had that experience, that's when I said, "All right, we're on to something here." And that was pretty much my educational journey. I needed somebody to push me, because unfortunately I did not have the best mentors initially, and they taught me bad habits. And it took having a coach, but also I will say, and this maybe be additional teacher advice, talk to the other educators in your school
Yeah.
building. Don't think that you are an island by yourself. do not isolate yourself, because you'll be surprised about how many teachers who are maybe the quiet ones are doing the most powerful work. And I learned so much from my colleagues, from the ELA department, from the math department, from the social studies department, because we were tight. We were the best department, whoop whoop, and still are. But we learned so much. So again, so my teaching journey began with like this straight line, and then someone pushed me to grow, and then I started growing more because I started collaborating and networking with folks within my career, within my teacher space. And then I became open-minded to incorporating things that I was at first uncomfortable about, but then I practiced it, became more comfortable, and then try to master it to the best of my ability. And then that made me who I am today, to be honest with you. I am who I am today because I had really good people around me. I had people who were passionate about the career, um, and yeah, I attribute that to the circle of folks that were in my school community. Yeah.
Sounded like you was like a caterpillar and you were just like, not reaching your potential, but you was moving in a direction, right? But just with the right guidance and I guess, the right just motivation, the right teaching, the right mentorship, you
Mm-hmm.
blossom into, this called, conscious pedagogue, right?
Yeah.
And you, man, absolutely. You learn from watching other teachers, but you don't get to do that a lot
Yeah, you don't.
because you're teaching.
You don't. Um, I know some teachers are nervous about doing it 'cause, teachers are self-conscious also.
Yeah.
Um, I would maybe recommend recording yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, every school district is different. In New York City, at least from my experience, a lot of kids sign waivers where they are acknowledging that they may be recorded, and their parents kind of give permission for them to be recorded. Also, because a lot of teachers, at least here, to be certified in New York State, you actually do have to record yourself teaching and then write some 50-page paper on it. But in any case, a lot of students consent to be recorded. So if you're concerned about the legality of that, definitely check with your principal to see if you can film in your classroom. But film yourself. And then after you film yourself, you and your teacher friends sit down, and you guys say, hey, look, I recorded myself. You guys give me some feedback. Those are some tricks of the trade that you can do. And actually, that was one thing that we did in my school. We all recorded ourselves, and then we gave each other feedback when we weren't able to do visits in each other's classrooms.
Love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Aurora. She's the conscious pedagogue. Man, you dropping so many gems right now. So talk about what you said, what was boring, right? You said that not doing what you like, that the culture or the pedagogy that was, liberating for you compared to doing it to the standard way. You said that it was boring. Can you elaborate more on that
Um,
for the kids?
so it was boring for me and the kids. If you are bored while you're teaching, more than likely your kids are probably bored. So that's when you need to say to yourself, I need to make it a little bit more spicy. I need to spicing it up, And so for me, a boring lesson was, and everyone knows this, in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. He had 3 ships. Now let's turn that into something culturally responsive and something more engaging. Why did Christopher Columbus, this random man who was an inexperienced explorer, all of a sudden get this wonderful job to now want to sail this vast ocean? Why? Who is this random man anyway? And whatever happened to him? Because we always hear about him discovering, but then we never hear about what happened to him after. And I'll let you know what happened. He ended up dying in debt and became a drunk. So my thing is, okay, I want to learn that side of Christopher Columbus. So I said to myself, I'm a history teacher. I want to learn about all the dirty secrets. I want to know about all the skeletons that are in the closet. And let's make this a mystery. And I guess that's where that inquiry-based learning comes into play. If you make your lessons like an investigation where your students are trying to figure out, well, what's he got in the closet? What's she got in the closet? Then your kids are like, whoa, history is crazy. I didn't know they were doing this. I didn't know they were doing that. And you'll be surprised about how the kids kind of light up. Because I've had kids tell me, they're like, Miss, you don't teach like other people. You know, I didn't know this. Cause I'm like, let's learn about George Washington's house. Like, he lives in this lavish mansion that overlooks the Potomac, but let's talk about where the slaves were living. So this man lives in all this luxury and the slaves live over here with the hay. You should go visit his house, by the way. It's very interesting. But I'm just saying, doing things like that, the kids are like, oh wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. For one, I didn't know wealth like this could exist during the colonial era, but also let's take a look at why a person with so much wealth would treat their slaves in a certain way. Then also let's ask further questions of, and there's no right or wrong answer, why do we put this person on our money? What does that symbolize? And then that's where you start having engaging conversations in your classroom, when you start having your students ask, why do we do certain things? And that's where the social consciousness comes in, because now you're questioning the values and morals of the society that you live in, where we have slave owners on our money, where we have people who have said, Black people should go back to Africa, which is something that Abraham Lincoln actually did say. And I have my students read those documents, and my students will then say to me, they're like, well, why is it that my whole life I've been told this one thing about this person, and I read a document that is a primary source from that person that says something else? And then I push the question back at them and ask, well, why do you think that is? Why do you think people try and hide these facts from us? And so for me, having those conversations in the class, being able to foster that curiosity from the students, makes lessons fun and not boring and not dull. And that's where learning happens, not just memorizing facts. Anybody could do that. I mean, and also you have Google now, so it's really pointless. But now it's like, okay, I have this data, I have this information. What do I do with it? How can I apply it into my life to make it relevant? Or how does it apply to my life? Oh, it's in my wallet every day. I use it as currency. It determines my value of who I am if I have a certain quantity of it. So for me, again, and those are some of the questions that I hope come from my students. But that's what makes, I guess, my classroom, in my opinion, more fun and not dull and boring.
Do you describe what you do as like liberating? The simple question.
I would think so.
So then, with that being said, do you consider yourself what you do activism, and that lesson plan is like a piece of active? Well, I don't want to say that. Do you consider yourself like what you do activism?
I don't really like to put labels on myself. I just think that I'm doing my civic duty and being an educator to my lovely students of New York City.
So I mean, not to put labels on you, so more just like speaking truth to power. When I think of an activist, I think of someone who is pushing, someone is forced to find the truth or is pushing people to find the truth. Where a politician, he or she has to politic, right? We have to give to get, and it's not like a forcing type thing. It's more of like a diplomatic type thing. That's what I mean.
So I would say, because I don't have an agenda, I'll be honest with you. I actually don't have an agenda. My thing is, I look at my practice from a culturally responsive approach that embraces multiculturalism. So my thing is, I'm going to give you multiple documents from different people, and then I'm going to ask you certain questions, and then whatever you come up with based on the evidence provided is what you come up with. But just know that the other kid sitting across from you may not agree with you, and let's have that dialogue, and let's practice as young adults having these academic discussions. So when you go to the next phase of your life and you encounter maybe the issues we're talking about in the class, you'll have something to add to the conversation. Or when it comes to you figuring out what you want to do in life, maybe something in the classroom sparked your interest to become a lawyer or a judge, whatever you decide. But No, I push my students to think critically, and I push my students to be competitive in all spaces, because I'm more concerned about students once they leave high school. Are they going to be able to keep up with the rest of society? Are they able to be on par with the different academic minds, the different cultural perspectives that people have? So I just want to make sure that my students can compete in this ever in this ever growing competitive world. That's honestly my main focus. I just want my kids to be able to survive and thrive.
But you have to have some type of agenda, right? Whether it is telling the truth or making sure that you know what you just said. But that's besides the point. I think I forgot what I was about to say. This has been a really great conversation. I wanted to ask you, it just passed my mind. Oh my gosh. Yeah, because you really hit a lot of these questions. Okay, here it is. So then would you agree with this? Dr. You ever heard of Dr. Goldie Bahamut?
I have heard of her, and I actually just purchased her book. My mentor told me I need to buy her book. And so, yeah, I just purchased it.
Yeah, so I want to see what you think about this. So she says that teachers need to be focused on three things, especially when you're talking about teaching, kids that we serve. You need to be focused on high criticality, so making sure that they're critical thinkers and doing what you say, they're questioning, and they could have a diplomatic conversation and agree to disagree, without being violent, like Joe Biden said in his inauguration speech. She said high intellectualism. So you want to learn not only about the United States, but we're going to learn about how we relate to different countries, how we relate to different environments and contexts. And the last thing she said was high identity. So having a strong identity in who you are and how the same kind of similar to intellectualism, where it's more focused on learning, where the identity is yourself, like self-awareness and how people see you. And she says that is Black excellence. Those three things. Do you agree or disagree?
I could agree with those points. I could definitely agree with those points. Um,
I figured
I
you.
Oh yeah, I mean, I try and foster all of those elements in my classroom daily, because I want all of my students to be empowered. To be honest, I want them to be empowered and to believe in themselves. Not to ramble on,
Oh,
but
go ahead.
but I teach a demographic of students that um, I feel a lot of people don't respect, because of their social economic backgrounds and also their cultural backgrounds. And, I've had students tell me through different activities that, they're not proud of their cultural identity and who they are. And so my thing is, how can I use my classroom to let students know that you are beautiful? You are beautiful. Your culture is beautiful. Who you are, from your dialect to your traditions, your customs, your religious beliefs, all of those things are beautiful. And so I show them that in the classroom.
Do you say Aurora Butler, or is just Aurora? That's your first and last name.
Um, no, so I have three names. My name is Star Aurora Butler. I prefer Aurora. I don't know why. It's just I think I'm going through that phase where I'm like, I think I want to be anonymous. I'm not anonymous anymore because now everybody on here knows my name. But yeah, no, I it took me a while to embrace Aurora. I used to not like my middle name, and then all of a sudden I'm like, no, I actually kind of like this. It's kind of cool.
Love
So
it.
yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And if y'all try to look for her, it's a secret sauce to it. But if you find it, you figure it out. But I got my sister Aurora coming through. So what do you want people to get from this podcast?
Um, I want them to understand that there are people out there that have the same sentiments and feelings when it comes to education as they do. And those sentiments may range from they don't feel that the education system is doing the right thing for our students. They may feel that education is failing our students at the moment. And just know that there are multiple teachers out there that may feel the same way, and they're trying to figure out what can they do to make small changes in their own way. So through my site, because there's a myriad of websites out there. There are so many different consultants and tutors. There are so many brilliant educators out there. I'm just one person. I cannot do it all. But just know that if in some way I can make your life 2% easier, then, hopefully check me out. But just know that you are not alone, and there are people out there that are waking up and are trying to figure out how they can be changers in education in their own way, within their little zone in the educational space.
And that's Simplicity, y'all. Got my sister Star Aurora Butler coming through out of the NYC, getting those scores on those exams, but she's also trying to make sure she's cultivating her kids' hearts, spirits. Tell us more about the Conscious Pedagogue and what's some other things you got coming up, and where can they find you?
So definitely follow me. So I have two Instagram accounts. My personal Instagram account is at Aurora Bella with an H. I really like Erykah Badu, and I like that she calls herself Fat Belly Bella. Yeah, side note. So I embrace that Erykah Baduism into my life all the time. Then the second way that you can find me is actually you can follow at the_conscious_pedagogue, also on Instagram. And that's where I'll make posts about new content that I posted on the site. And also, I am looking for folks who are interested in contributing to the blog. Because again, I want the Conscious Pedagogue to be about teachers, not about me. I am one person. So if you are interested in being a contributing author, if you are interested in maybe advertising yourself on the page, please reach out to me on either Instagram account. I'm the owner of both. And yeah, I'm just here to serve you. So
there you go. I love it. I love it. Aurora, thank you so much for coming with us. Peace out.
All right. Thank you for having me. Take care, guys.
Oh no, wait.